Greetings, viewers. Well, behind me you can probably see it's my latest acquisition. Yes, that is correct. I actually bought a Yugo. I was dumb enough to do that. So yeah, I bought a Yugo. This is a 91 GV plus, one of kind of the latest of the bunch that they import. You have to pardon the mess. I did have a more tidier intro to the video, but since I lost my phone, that footage is lost as well. So now we have to kind of make do type deal. So why I bought it? I kind of wanted to buy Yugo for quite a while. It's not a rational decision. It's not a smart decision. This one was particularly not a smart decision, but at the time when I was purchasing it, I did not know about that because how should I put this? It doesn't run. And the reason for it doesn't run is because it has a locked engine. Yeah, which is kind of a huge bummer. And yeah, if I knew about that, that would not happen. But oh well. I guess now I have to kind of look for the positives in the whole deal. This is the kind of the latest of the bunch of the Yugos, and as far as Yugos go, this generation would be the best of to buy. I know it's kind of like sitting on the on a plane that goes down. You know, do you want a window seat or do you want an aisle seat? It doesn't matter. You're still on the plane that that's going down, or a ship that's sinking. It doesn't really matter which deck you're on. But these are actually the Malcolm Bricklin, how should I say it, imports organization, however you want to call it. And these were regarded, or are regarded, as the best Yugos that you can get because they were put together on a separate line. They are much better build quality than what Yugo factory was producing at the time. The people who were screwing them together were better workers, or should I say more conscious workers, and they were paid a dollar something more an hour, which was huge back in late 80s and beginning of the 90s. So yeah, these were actually quite well put together. The materials were nicer. You can actually tell the difference when I was dismantling it. None of the stuff was rusted or hard to undo for the Yugo. Caveat emptor for the Yugo. Okay, so they're not bad cars per se. It's just the problem is when people bought them, they bought them as disposable ones and nobody would maintain them, and these guys are kind of sensitive towards that, especially with the timing belt replacement. Now with the problem that I have actually unfolded a little bit later on, because again, the first initial surprise was the engine was locked up, and second surprise was this thing is actually a rare beast. Let me show you. Here's the reason why this Yugo is actually a bit of a problem, or should I say a challenge. This thing is automatic. That is extremely rare for a Yugo. They made less than 500 of these guys. Out of the whole total production of Yugo, which is like around 800 and something thousand, they made just a handful of these guys, and that was it. What Yugo did, they purchased a 500 transmissions from Renault, the ancient 3-speeds that were obsolete to begin with. They installed 485 in these guys for export market, for the American market, kept 15 transmissions as spares for various warranty services, and let them loose, and that's pretty much it. So that makes this a very rare beast. Out of the math says that for every one of these guys, they made 1,600 plus of the regular manual Yugos. So as far as Yugo go, this is a keeper, I guess. However, being an automatic is not my only problem. Being a car guy, you kind of want to go back to the more easier to maintain, more fun stuff because, as you can tell, I have plenty of cars that are automatic, plenty of cars that are easy to drive. You kind of want something to tinker with, and this thing was kind of supposed to be just like that. However, this, on top of being automatic, this is also, or was, should I say, a fuel injected model. Now, usually that means upscaling, that means ease of maintenance, that means of ease in starting up, running. Basically, everything is much more nicer with fuel injected models. However, on a Yugo, that means that engine bay is a mess. Everything is far more complicated than the carbureted version 1. And plus, the problem is Yugo installed old Bosch Motronic 3.1 fuel injection system, which was okay at the time. BMW was running, I think, the similar problems, similar injection, but the problem is now the parts are very hard to find. Manuals are very sparse. People who are actually maintaining those kind of systems, they're all kind of iffy. Versus the carburetor, you can go to Walmart and buy one almost. So despite what I'm gonna go against the grain and say, in this particular application, I would actually prefer the carburetor. The reason is because the Lampredi engine that Yugo borrowed from Fiat is actually, it's a treat to be carbureted because it will sing like a proper Italian engine should, versus if you have the fuel injection thing, it kind of, it's not the same thing. You don't buy Yugo for basic transportation. You do not buy Yugo, at least in setting that we have them here. You don't buy them for reliability or something like that. You buy them as a fun toy, and you'll find out something very, very odd. People say that these guys are unreliable and bad to drive and bad in every shape, form, safety is a question and all that stuff. All that is true, but if you find somebody who has a good Yugo, who was actually maintained and who actually is keeping them as a project slash toy slash a fun thing to drive, you have a difficult time pressing them to sell it. They all say the same thing. Yeah, it's not fast, it's not good on gas, it's not comfy, it's not this or that. And ask them, hey, would you sell it? No. Very, very seldomly these guys come on a sale. If they're in a terrible shape. They are pretty much run to the ground, crusty, rusty, basically just a shell of the guys. So to find one in a decent shape is very rare. To find one for sale in a decent shape is very, very rare, and people starting to ask premiums for these guys. When I started looking for a Yugo, this was like maybe 3 years ago, they were running about maybe $1,000-$2,000 for running ones, and about maybe $3,000 for very nice ones, like in this one, minus the non-running part. Now they're creeping up to 7,000. Yes, for a Yugo. Again, rarity makes things expensive. So that's why I'm kind of inclined to actually keep up with this project, despite the fact that I'm already blown past the budget that I wanted to invest in this thing. I still don't know if I'm going to be able to put it back together. And as of right now, the plan is to pull this engine out and replace it with a carbureted one, and hopefully get a manual transmission on it as well. But Og, you said... But wait a minute, didn't you just say that automatic is a rarity for these guys and they should be kept on as is and all that stuff? True. The thing is, it's more of a nostalgia for me. I actually passed the driving test on one of these guys. It was actually the same color. And to me, there is something about the Yugo and a 5-speed, even if terrible that 5-speed is, should be kind of kept as Yugo-ness, if you like. So as of right now, the plan is to put a working engine in it and hopefully a manual transmission. That is the plan. I will keep all the good stuff here, so down the road, I will probably return everything back together, so I don't want to hear any comments about me ruining a classic or rarity. No, I will keep all the good stuff with me, just in case if I have a wild hair and I want to put everything back together, or I get a flack from the Puritans of the Yugo community, if there is such thing. Anyway. Alrighty, so working on this jalopy. So today I was planning to start to remove all that stuff, but first I need to drain the fluid, because funnily enough this thing is still holding its liquid. This thing can hold a drink. Imagine that, a slab can hold a drink. No comment. But in order to do that, basically I was planning to loosen up the bottom hose on the radiator, which is like, you can kind of see it, it's down there somewhere. And the bottom clamp, of course, it's rusting. I cannot get it loose. So from the bottom is kind of impossible to get because there is that ledge that protects the radiator. So I decided to go from the top. In order to go from the top, the shroud is in the way, of course, and it's nice and metal, so you know it will gouge you quite nicely if you try to do it that way. So okay, I decided to take the shroud off. 4 screws, nothing, no big deal. Managed to get 3 of them off, and that last one, that bugger over there, of course, that's kind of inaccessible. It's really rusty, so I PV blasted a little bit, but at the same time it's almost impossible to get to and get a proper wrench hold, because you see everything is in the way. So I'm like, let me take the coil off, and everything is like you have to dismantle 14 things in order to get to that one little screw, of course, and try to undo that screw, which will loosen up the coil to get it out of the way. You can't, because there is a nut that's not captive on the bottom side, so basically just spinning in place. The top one is fairly easy to get to, but you cannot get a wrench on it because there is no the actual coil is in the way, so you cannot get an angle at it. And it's not a number 8 millimeters, so it's yeah, I don't have a wrench for it. I only have the duplicative ones, and of course I cannot get it too. And then at the same time there's a bottom one as well that of course it's almost impossible to get to, because I do not have extension that's short enough to reach there and not long enough to get into the radiator here. So and the nuts, these ones are captive. So it's like oh, Yugo. Alrighty, moving along. So more of the, you need to undo this before you do that. So I managed to unscrew all the fan shroud screws. Technically that's loose, but I cannot back it off enough to make it go away, because the upper radiator hose is in the way. So now I need to undo that first. Good grief, the puzzle. Well, after some more deliberation, I decided to pull the radiator out, because it's pretty silty in there, and there is some mayo sitting in that bottom hose outlet. So, and this is really sludgy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rinse this radiator, fill it up with some vinegar and some cleaner and whatnot. Hopefully we'll be able to save it and go from there. Man, this turned to be every single corner disturbed into the project. Okay, moving along. So the work on Yugo continues. I took the valve cover off, managed to rotate the camshaft a little bit, and I was actually surprised. The cam lobes don't look all that terrible. They actually look kind of good. I mean, this is like an imprint from sitting on the valve, what you want to call it thing, bucket, that long. But overall, very little pitting. So now I loosen up the bolts for the camshaft. I don't know what you want to call it, the housing, whatever you want to call it. So I'm trying to pull that off, and of course, Yugo being Yugo, you kind of have to take, one more thing before that, in order to get there. So this thing, the shield for the timing belt is actually bolted on the outside from the block all the way through the head to the camshaft housing, if you like. So in order to do that, there is those two bolts. There was another one on the side. I took that one off, tried to yank it, nope, no go. There is one more downstairs. That's actually the last one that's actually preventing me to do that. And then I can unbolt this guy here and take that off. And as I'm trying to unbolt it, and the thing is spinning and spinning and spinning, and I'm like, what's going on? And as you can tell, it's actually pulling itself, come on, focus. It's actually pulling itself out from the head. Oh my god, good lord. It's just one thing after another. It's like German engineering. No, this is the opposite of it. This is Slavic engineering. So you kind of have to take 7 things off to access the one that you need. But we're moving along, I guess, still. Snail's pace. Okay, so pull the head gasket off. Found very interesting find, if you like. Obviously, it's a head gasket failure when I scraped off the chili that was sitting in here. You can kind of tell there's this little failure point, but we kind of cleaned this up. What I found very interesting is that none of the cylinders had my Marvel Mystery Oil. Of course, now they have the coolant in it, because the moment you pull the head off, the thing just leaks in. But so, which kind of begs the question, what exactly happened to this engine? Because if you had a head gasket failure, which explains the emulsions and mayo left and right, where does the gas in the engine comes into the play? I mean, it's still stuck solid. I'm going to try to drop the pen and try to free it up from that end, because I'm really curious what that cylinder looks like. But before I do that, I would like to see what the con rods and the bottom end looks, because what's curious is the oil does not have any glitter in it, any whatsoever, which is fascinating. So this, if something happened to this engine to lock up, it was quick, and it was very painful, but it was quick. So I don't know. I would like to rotate that engine so I can take a look at that cylinder, because the rest of them are, I mean, not terrible. Yes, it's a worn engine and whatnot, but it's not bad. Very, very interesting. This is I mean, yes, I'm I'm really look at this. I'm really not happy about the purchase and whatnot. But at the same time, this could be a very interesting two for failure, that you had a head gasket that was starting to make mayo, and at the same time the injector dropped and hung and filled the cylinders with not cylinders, but filled the what you want to call it, the crankcase with gas, and then basically locked up the engine because the oil was not working anymore. Very interesting. Okay. All right, move along. So now what? Well, what I found out when I was starting to dismantle the engine was kind of a couple of different things. One of them was the oil had quite a lot of gas in it. And when I say quite a lot of gas, I mean a lot of gas in it. To the point of that was looking like almost like coffee, and it was the same consistency. It was just running like water. What's the culprit of that? I don't know. Again, I have zero history with this car. I received the keys and the title, and that was it. So you be the judge. You be, your guess is as good as mine about that. I am inclined to think that one of the injectors got stuck open, and it was just spraying fuel willy-nilly and just fill up the crankcase to the point of that the oil wasn't lubricating anymore, and just ruined the bearings, and locked the engine like that. To support that theory, when I took the head off, all the cylinders look actually pretty nice. There's just a little bit of a lip at the end of the travel, indicating that this engine probably has about, I don't know, 50K or something like that, which is not that big of a deal. And all the pistons, they can rock a little bit, so they're not stuck to the point, but you cannot move them. You cannot move them, period. So, which indicates that the lockdown happened actually on the bottom end. Again, that kind of goes with a whole injection system being either faulty, or one of the injectors being faulty or old, or I don't know what happened, and that's one of the reasons why I want to get rid of it and go back to the carburetor, because carburetors are never have problems with carburetors. No, that's a lie. Carburetors are they can be pain in the neck and whatnot, but with the fuel injections with this car, it's just a pain in the neck, and again, I do not want to go down that rabbit hole. Maybe at one point I'll go back, who knows, but as of right now, the fuel system is getting reworked and going back to the carburetor one. That was a bummer. That was really a huge setback, time-wise and of course finance-wise, because that kind of blew my budget of what now, because now I'm trying to find out a suitable engine for it, which present the problem, and at the same time it's not a problem. The problem is these guys are rare to begin with. They kind of nobody kept them, or should I say very little people kept them in a good condition. So consequently the mechanics are any kind of drivetrain components are relatively sparse, especially in a good condition. So yes, I can salvage this engine, I can take it to the machine shop and let them redo the whole thing, but that will cost, $5,000 by the time you actually do the crank, do the connecting rods and maybe pistons, and hone the block and magnaflux the block. It will just skyrocket. You will end up with $15,000 Yugo that's worth $5,000. So I cannot do that right now, nor I'm willing to do that right now. It's just not healthy mentally and financially. So that's the bad part. The good part is these are originally, it's basically a Fiat design engine. So the good thing is Fiat had some presence throughout the 70s and 80s in the United States with a Fiat 128 and Fiat X19. So those engines are actually available, not as new, but at least they are available. So you can go with that route. They did make a 1.3 engine, which is this one, but they didn't come with fuel injections until I think beginning of the 80s, which kind of complicates things a bit, because if I want to stick with the fuel injection and redo that, I had to go with a 1.5 engine, which is a little bit taller, so the exhaust pipe doesn't fit anymore. It just creates a snag of problems. So right now what I'm trying to get is the original 1.1 engine, which was how these guys came from the factory, and which kind of suits their whole chassis and setup and whatnot. Yes, they're slower. I mean, it's only 55 horsepower or whatnot, versus 65, 67 in this edition. So they are not going to be, I mean, they're not going to be speed rocket no matter what you do. So, but just to pull around town, you know, back road driving, I think that should be plenty. Usually those engines are sturdy enough. They usually come with a manual transmission, so I'm hoping to find the whole drivetrain as one. But again, that means that I need to pull this engine out, and that means time and that means money. I don't have too much of one either, but at least it's a solution. At least there is a solution to the problem. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to be the end of this video. Next video I'm going to start putting together about how I dismantled the head, because again, lost footage of that, and hopefully about the findings regarding the new and improved old used drivetrains for this thing. I don't know how long that's gonna take. They are available, but usually people who have them, they don't want to let them go for unless it's a pretty penny, or relative pretty penny in Yugo terms. So that's the plan. We'll see how that's gonna pan out. Until then, Yugo is gonna be enjoying the garage, despite the fact that I really need this for the winter. But when you take a project like this, there is no such thing as planning anymore. How stuck is this engine? Allow me to demonstrate. I'm gonna put a socket on the end of it and use the very, very long extension. Click together. Very stuck.